Hi guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Big roster developments last night with Beans confirming it seems he has signed a contract somewhere. Rumour has it it's going to be that Toronto Ultra team. What exactly is their rebuild looking like? Are Insight and CleanX also going to stay? And if they are, who's the fourth of that team going to be? What does it mean for the likes of Sib? Restricted free agents still from that Cloud9 roster. Will they be forced to bring him back into their lineup? Ghosty certainly implies the dominoes are now seriously falling in this Rostermania cycle. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. This I thought was hilarious, I'm not gonna lie here from Plebeians. Managed to find up one of these old thumbnails. This was like a clip from the start of the year. I feel like it was Skid Row or something where Scrappy and Ghosty were getting into a little bit, Zoom was getting roasted, and yeah, definitely an all-timer thumbnail here, I'm not gonna lie. And I forgot about this picture of Scrappy I used to use as well, like every single video before the new headshots came out, because maybe this was even pre-Major 1 or whatever, because they tend to do all the new pictures at Major 1, so that's when you get the updated like thumbnail stuff that you can use. Whereas I always used to use this picture of Scrap. Maybe I need to bring it back a little bit, not gonna lie. He's now gonna be probably with Ghosty on the Los Angeles Thieves. That's the latest rumour. But a couple of things to dive into as well. Of course, we saw this yesterday from Adamu over at Toronto Ultra basically saying, look, we can't afford these contracts, changes need to be made. This I just wanted to look at a little bit more detail again, because as he says, we lowered buyouts dramatically to give our players the freedom to choose their next steps, and many have already done so. So what is many? I guess that's my question for you guys. Is that 2? Is that 3? Is that more? Because Scrap and Envoy are included. They have chosen to go to Thieves. We're pretty sure that agreement is now set. Deal effectively done. Contracts maybe not quite yet signed, but certainly deal agreed. Unless gentlemates come in and sabotage it last minute, probably nothing is going to change on that front. So, you know, does this also include CleanX and Insights? Because, you know, he's quite clear we cannot sustain the contracts we have. So, Insight and CleanX also under contract. Also, let's not forget, restricted free agent. Insight was the only one that actually, like, announced it, but he said, the tweet's still there, restricted FA, allowed to explore options, right? So, it's not like Insight and CleanX's contracts are going away. If Toronto want to keep them, the argument might be they might need to re-sign them on a lower number, and therefore, if Insight and CleanX get offers elsewhere, then they potentially will take them. The question is there really any other team that would be looking at either of those guys? I think there are, but is there a team that would be better than what Toronto are trying to build? Possibly not. The only option in my head is possibly what Cloud9 are thinking about, given if they do lose HyDra, and obviously Sib, they've got rid of him, effectively, they could still bring him back. There are some questions on whether CleanX could be a target there from an SMG perspective, but, you know, even then I'm not really sure I massively like it. So there's some interesting questions right now on what Toronto are up to. I guess the theory would probably be that Insight and CleanX will end up staying, but they might not be staying on their current contracts. They might have to re-sign something new, and I'm sure it's going to be a little bit interesting behind the scenes as well. Cloud9 are therefore the other team in big conversation. It's not long ago that we thought, well, maybe FaZe would make a change. They came top 6 of the World Championship. That seemed pretty plausible. Obviously, after the World Cup result, that didn't happen, especially because Cellium believed, it seems like, after Champs, that he was potentially on the chopping block. Then he decided, all right, let me play a bit faster at the World Cup, and the rest is history, of course, on that one. But Jack Etienne from Cloud9, he made some interesting statements, right? He's not said he doesn't want to spend money. What he said is, after buying the COD team effectively taken over the Subliners, he was surprised that the team wanted to blow it up themselves. So it's not like Cloud9, even though you can argue this has been their modus operandi. But, you know, are they selling HyDra just to get a bag? No, they're selling HyDra if they do sell him to Thieves, because he wants to leave the team effectively, and he wants to go and team with a better roster, which is fair enough as well. And therefore, they'll make some cash for doing so. But therefore, they will also have cash possibly to spend if they want to try and rebuild their own team. And that's kind of the question, right? Will Cloud9 become, they're not going to become a poverty org, but like, will they take over Subliners and, you know, basically cut costs, cut budget, and form a team that's going to be okay but nothing special, which would be frustrating to many New York fans, of course, over the last several years? Or will they say, all right, HyDra wanted to leave, we're going to do the best we can, even if that involves paying money to buy out, you know, CleanX or trying to upgrade in some way or another? But Jack Etienne says that feeling when you're losing all 4 off seasons, obviously their Valorant situation right now is kind of in flux as well. But rumour has it that basically their star talent of the Cloud9 team in Valorant, oxi, if you guys follow that scene as well, or follow my other channel that talks about Valorant, he might be getting poached somewhere else. So, you know, I don't know what's going on in LCS or Dota, to be honest. I'm not going to comment on that. But, you know, his feeling is that it's not exactly looking great right now for Cloud9. And then Cloud9 actually quote tweet this with the following. So, yeah, what's happening? What are Cloud9 cooking? Is it anything? Is it an absolute disaster class over there? Because, you know, if you're Skyz, if you're Kismet, you're seeing what's unfolding. I guess you are wondering, damn, like, was that our last ever World Championship Grand Final? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't sound like it's going to be easy for Cloud9 to rebuild a roster which is going to have, you know, that level of competitiveness as they've had before. Unless, of course, they can come to some sort of arrangement with Sib. As I said the other day, rumour has it that it wasn't really HyDra that had a problem with Sib. It was, you know, maybe Skyz, the AR duo, maybe the coaching staff over there. But obviously the coaching staff are possibly going to be gone. There are rumours as well that Cinder might be out the door in addition to ReeaL. Cinder may be following HyDra along to the Los Angeles Thieves. That was a rumour. Obviously, with JCap departing, that may or may not be true. We really don't know right now. So it's difficult if you are a New York fan or obviously a Toronto fan, because you're seeing the league become increasingly top-heavy. Are those rosters still capable? Are those teams still capable of forming competitive teams? Sure. I think I actually have more faith in Toronto to do so over the next few years, because as JKL says, regardless of what's happened in the league over the last several years, Toronto have always formed some degree of a competitive team, right? Even when they had, you know, the Bant, Cammy, Insight, CleanX team. When that roster was formed, wasn't necessarily expected to be able to win events or make serious grand finals. That's what they managed to do. Even the year before, of course, back in you know, Modern Warfare 19, where they had the 5v5 team, and they messed around with so many different pieces of the puzzle. Classic was there, Methods was there, and they still got their home series win that year. So I think Ultra fans should still be confident the organisation can do a good job in this, what is effectively going to be a rebuild year. And I do like where things seem to be going based on what we saw yesterday here from Benjamin Beans. Contract signed. One of the first contract signed gifts we've actually seen this Rostermania appear, which is pretty rare. I think maybe Rencor did one as well. I'm not sure on that. But we've not seen much happen, right? It's remarkable to me that we are well over now a month since the World Cup. And obviously, therefore, basically 2 months, right, since the World Championship. And only now are we starting to get things actually happening and locked in. But Bean says contract signed. And this comes just a day after Adam Adamu tweeted out handshake deal agreed. Effectively, that was the implication with the Los Angeles Thieves for Scrappy and Envoy. So obviously, Toronto are getting a bag for selling those two guys. And Beans, I think, has played this very smart, because he joined the Ravens for the World Cup, of course, played pretty well, and you know, held his own for sure. We know what Beans is like. I mean, he has his absolute takeover moments, but he is a bit inconsistent. The gunny is undeniable. The talent is undeniable. They called him the EU Dashy, right, for a very good reason. And when you watch his POV, you kind of get it. But obviously, consistency will be a factor for Beans if he needs to be, you know, if he wants to go to the next level, if he's potentially taking Scrappy's role as well, because those are some serious shoes to fill, especially from a consistency standpoint. But I'm pretty sure that when Beans signs the contract for the World Cup, he just signs like a 2-week contract or something that didn't lock him in, because Ravens then effectively released him as a completely unrestricted free agent, so he's been able to sign a contract somewhere completely for free. And as we said the other day, the biggest rumour as of late is that it's going to be Ultra. I can't really see where else it would be. It could possibly be Cloud9, and there are other teams in the league as well that are also signing players, but often the way that it works is the top teams sign their players first, and then the worst teams sign their players later. So I don't expect the Beans has signed a contract with, you know, the Ravens or something, or like the Minnesota Rock or whatever. Again, now they will sort out their teams probably in a couple of weeks' time. Now it's the big teams sort out their rosters. OpTic are staying, FaZe are staying, then it's Thieves, Toronto, Cloud9, and then kind of it moves down from there, generally speaking, in terms of when these players are locking in their contracts, just because the organisations lower down the pecking order want to make sure that there there isn't something that happens that they can potentially capitalize on, so they usually tend to wait for the big names to get locked in before they then lock in what they're going to do. But Beans to Ultra is the biggest rumor right now, and the other rumor was that CleanX and Insight are likely to stay. Obviously been a duo for so many years. I thought that it was going to end this off-season, but as I say, Cloud9 is really of the actual candidate teams for next year that potentially could be in contention for a Sunday for a grand finals. Cloud9's the only other team to consider, really. Beans, I mean, look, he could come in there alongside Skyz instead of Sib, sure, but is there, like, you know, is there a massive advantage to be gained there? They didn't get along, seemingly, that camp with Sib last year. What's to say they're going to get along with Beans? I mean, that's not guaranteed by any means at all. So the most likely scenario is that Beans has locked in the contract, and as Method says, beautiful city to walk, but some of that off. So I guess the implication is, because obviously Method's spent some time on Toronto, and then Beans says, what were you doing while you were there? And Methods mentions the Fish Shore, the local public eatery, and the White Squirrel Cafe, which is, like, that is a spot in Toronto, right? So, like, we're very clear we're talking about Toronto here, and we're very clear the implication is that Beans is going to be on that roster, probably alongside Insight and CleanX. The big question though for you guys is, let's say that's your team, and you have, obviously Ghosty is implying that here come the dominoes, right? They're falling down in this situation, because now that's locked in, something else is going to get locked in, Thieves are going to get their deals all finalized or whatever, right? But let's say it's Beans, Insight on your ARs, it's CleanX on one of your SMGs, you've got no Envoy anymore. So who do you sign? I guess that is the debate right now, because there are a number of players, of course, in the league that you could consider looking at. TJ is an option that honestly wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility. He obviously played with Beans last year on Ravens, briefly. That could be a possibility. JoeDeceives as well. Kremp, maybe. Options from the Los Angeles Thieves roster if you wanted to bring them into the team. So I just really want to just scroll through a number of the players in the league just to look at some of the names that could be in consideration here for the Toronto Ultra going into next year. And really, you've got to find an SMG if you are Toronto who is potentially going to be suitable alongside CleanX, and one of the better candidates would for sure be Gwyn. I think if you are Toronto, if you can bring Gwyn along as well, the problem is that there's going to be a buyout there, and Toronto obviously struggling for money on some level. Yes, they're going to get some money for Scrap and Envoy for sure, and that money can, I'm sure, pay for Gwyn's buyout, and I'm sure a lot more in addition. So that's probably the man that I would look to get if you can get him. But the question is whether you can or not. But it's also Cloud9 that will be competing for the same type of players, right? Because if you're Cloud9, you have Kismet, you have Skyz. Well, maybe you're bringing Sib back, maybe you're not. I mean, I guess logic would dictate that you bring Sib back, because what else are you going to do? And you just resolve the issues. And that's probably the more likely outcome. But it's far from guaranteed they're actually going to do that. So therefore, as I say, these other SMG players alongside Kiz, the likes of Gwyn, and you know, maybe even Kremp or some others that I mentioned. Even Mac, I guess, is a consideration for some of these teams, because he is kind of apparently going to come back for the new season. These are players that Cloud9 will also need to be competing with. Nero, as I said, is another candidate to consider, but I don't really think him and CleanX is a duo that I'd want to be putting together. There's just way too much pace there and maybe a bit of inconsistency in play. So that's when there are not too many SMG options that really fall into that category. As I say, Gwyn is probably the standout. And maybe there's a possibility that they can capitalize if, let's say, Ravens were to get sold, because there was a rumor that Ravens were maybe going to get sold to Fnatic. And if that was the case, maybe that opens the door for some sort of negotiation. But yeah, time will tell. Very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.